today we begin with our study of Śrī Īśopaniṣad, and to begin with that, as part of our course, every time we start our session, we'll also recite together all these shlokas. So we have a total of 18 shlokas, and as part of your Bhakti Shastri curriculum, you have to learn 2 shlokas, Invocation and shloka number 1. So last time, although I intended to speak something on the subject of how to learn shlokas and the importance of it, we didn't have time. I would not spend time right now. Maybe if time permits in the end, we'll speak of it. But just to give you a little bit just on the subject matter, Srila Prabhupada really appreciated when his disciples recited and learned shlokas. And there's a very famous story that comes in Srimad Bhagavatam of Gajendra Moksha. This comes in 8th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, where the great king Indradumna, being cursed by a sage for a petty crime of his, and had been cursed to become an elephant in his next life, despite of being born into an animal body, as we know, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse number, I believe it's 41, I guess. Neha vikramanashasti pratyavayo navityate swalpamasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhyat. Even if one performs devotion service for a fraction of a second, Krishna says this process of Bhakti Yoga can save that person from the greatest danger. And then later on, 6th chapter, Krishna actually promises Arjuna. When Arjuna asks what happened to those who practice, the yoga bhrashtas, who have practiced Bhakti Yoga for a short time and for a long time. So here we have a story of Gajendra, who was a great devotee of the Lord, but got cursed and took birth as an elephant, lived his life in an ignorance as an animal, but finally when he was met with a severe crisis in his life, when he was about to die, suddenly he had a recollection of the shlokas that he had learned in his previous life. And getting into that memory, recollecting the shlokas, it is explained in the 8th canto, there was a lotus, there was a beautiful lake, there were a lot of lotuses. He picked up one of the lotus and offered to the Vishnu by reciting those prayers that he has learned in his previous life. So I'm just giving one example, Shastric example for it. However, the benefits of learning shloka, reciting shloka, is also described in the 17th chapter, verse number 16, if I'm correct, where we have this verse describing the austerity of speech. Van mayam tapa uchyate. So there it is mentioned, one of the austerity of speech, satyam priyam hitam chayat. What is that verse? It begins with. Anyways, so swadhyay abhyasana chaiva, it is explained there. So one of the austerity of the speech, and one of the way of purifying our speech is a regular recitation of the Vedic scriptures, which means the shlokas like that, or the Vedic hymns. So it increases mode of goodness, purifies our mind, or purifies our chetna consciousness, and also helps us at time of crisis, an example of Gajendra. And apart from that, when we have this memory or memorization of the verses, and when our mind is getting distracted, at that point of time, if we recall an appropriate verse, for example, let's say someone's mind is getting disturbed or agitated, being under lockdown, somebody feels like, oh, there had been no entertainment, I couldn't meet with devotees, let me go and watch a movie, there is some new movies coming around and whatnot. Just a very gross example. Then there's a very classic verse given in Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, verse number 22. Ye hi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yoni evate yadyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddhaha. And the premise of this verse, a very simple sense, the meaning is the sense gratification only gives birth, dukkha yoni evate, only gives birth to misery. So if in case we are able to recollect this verse, when our mind is superseding our intelligence and forcing us, compelling us to do the act that we understand is not appropriate or best in our best interest, at that point of time, shlokas, recitation of these important shlokas empowers our intelligence, brings about the recollection of memory about the importance of spiritual culture and practices. So these are some of the key points for you to remember. This is very important, and as a part of our coursework, you will have to learn several verses from this text of Īśopaniṣad. Invocation and text one is a shloka that we need to learn. Now, how do we learn shlokas? The very easy and standard method is recitation. Repeat, 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 and that is how we get it. Of course, repetition works very well. Those who are young kids, their memory is very sharp. They recite 2 or 3 times and it gets by heart. However, for the grown-ups like us, it becomes a little difficult because even when we do repetition, our mind is very distracted. So the other way for the seniors or those who are grown up, of course, you have to do repetition, no doubt about it. But for you to learn shlokas, additional tip would be to understand the meaning line by line. And we'll try to do that in our coursework. Before we look into the translation of any of these verses, we'll also try to go through the sequence or go through the verse, maybe word by word or maybe line by line, and try to see how they're connected. And when we understand how they're connected, in other words, of course, that requires some practice, some knowledge of Sanskrit. When we get the sense of it, then actually we can give a translation of the verse in our own words. And like that, it helps in recollecting verses. So just few tips on that. So let's begin with our recitation of shlokas. I hope screen is visible, and let's start with invocation. Om Purnam Madaha Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Mudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Ishavasyam Idam Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatayam Jagat Tena Taktena Bhanjita Magadha Kasya Siddhanam Kurvaneveha Karmani Jiji Visikshatam Samaha Evam Tvainanate Tosti Na Karma Lipyate Nare Asuranamate Loka Andhena Tamasavrataha Tamste Pretyabhikachanti Yeke Cha Atmahano Janaha Anejadekam Manaso Javiyo Nayana Devapnuvan Purvamashat Tadhavatonyanatyeti Tishta Tasmin Napomaturishvadadati Tad Ajayati Tannajayati Tadure Tadva Antike Tadantarasya Sarvasya Tadya Sarvasya Bhayataha Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmanivānupashyati Sarva Bhuteshu Chatmanam Tato na Vijugupsate Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atmaiva Bhutvijanataha Tatra ko mohakaha shoka Ekatvam anupashyataha Saparyaga Shukramakayam Avranam Ashnaviram Shuddham Apapavidham Kavi Manishi Paribhu Swayambhu Yathat Yatorthan Vyada Chasvatibhya Samabhya Andham Tama Praveshanti Ye Avidyam Upasate Tato Bhuya Ivate Tamo Yayu Vidyayam Rataha Anyadevahu Vidyaya Anyadahura Vidyaya Iti Shishrumadhirana Yenastad Vichachakshire Vidyam cha Yastat Vedo Bhayam Saha Avidyaya Mrityum Titva Vidyamritamashnuте Andham Tama Pravishanti Ye Sambhutim Upasate Tato Bhuya Ivate Tamo Yayu Sambhutam Rataha Anyadevahu Sambhavad Anyadahu Rasambhavad Iti Shushrumadhiranam Yenastat Vichachakshire Sambhutim cha Vinasham cha Yastad Vedo Bhayam Saha Vinashena Mrityum Titva Sambhut Amritamashnute Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasapi Hitam Mukham Tattvam Pushan Apavarano Satyadharmaya Drashtaye Pushannikashe Yamasurya Prajapatya Vyuharasmin Samuha Tejo Yatte Rupam Kalyanatamam Tatte Pashyami Susav Asau Purushoham Asmi Vayurnilam Amritam Atidam Basmantam Shariram Om Krato Smara Kratam Smara Krato Smara Kratam Smara. And the final verse. Agnenaya supatharaya asman Vishwani deva vyunani vidwan Yuyodhi asmad juhuranameno Bhuhishtanti nama uktim vidhema Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Rama Hare Hare. So I hope, I mean, it's difficult to actually, I'm kind of reciting myself. I really don't know what's going on with all of you, but I hope you were able to follow up a little bit. Although it may seem a little difficult, particularly Upanishad verses, but we'll be able to catch up when we go through this exercise 2-3 times. All right. And let's begin with our presentation. So we are on Śrī Īśopaniṣad. Let's begin with, today we're going to start with invocation. Now, if you look at our Vedic text in general, every book will start with an invocation. So invocation generally fulfills two purposes. One is a way of seeking blessings, just like we offer prayers before we begin to speak on any spiritual subject matter. That is one part of it. And second part of invocation, the second purpose the invocation fulfills is glorification of our acharyas, our great personalities. So if you look at any of the scriptures compiled by our acharyas, let's say Nectar of Devotion, Chaitanya Charitamrita, etc., you'll always find, invocation. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a huge set of verses which just forms a part of invocation like that. So the verse that we're going to read, which is given to us as an invocation in Īśopaniṣad, interestingly does not fulfill any of this criteria. The invocation mantra that we're just about to recite is neither seeking blessing, is nor glorifying any personality. So question arises, what is the purpose of this invocation? We'll talk about it in the next slide. So what is the verse here? So let's recite once more. Om Purnam Adha Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. Om in general refers to Supreme Personality of Godhead. It says the complete whole Om, Purnam, is complete in himself. Adaha means that. Purnam, completely, perfectly complete. Idam, this phenomenal world. Purnat Purnam Udachyate, this phenomenal world is created from the absolute truth, who is complete in itself entirely. Purnasya Purnam Adaya, although this complete phenomenal world, the material world, which is complete in itself, is manifesting from the complete unit, yet Purnam Eva Vashishyate, yet that supreme absolute or the absolute truth remains complete. There is no deficiency because something has manifested. It doesn't mean that he falls short of anything. So let's take a look at the translation here. I will speak on it. Somebody would like to read the translation? I would request any of our hosts can manage that.
Yes, Prabhu, I'm managing. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Prakant.
So, yes, Taruni Gopika.
Hare Krishna. Anyone read?
Yeah. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. Hare Krishna.
So thank you. Actually, I would say this is kindness of Srila Prabhupada, who have made a translation very easy. But it's not that easy translation if you go with the Sanskrit grammar way, and if you put it into translation. Even for anyone to read and understand is very difficult. You know, only one thing that comes again and again repeated in the translation is complete, complete and complete and completely and complete and complete, and it goes on like that. So first of all, what is the meaning of this invocation here, and what is the author trying to accomplish? Very first thing, Baldev Vidyabhushan explains in his commentary of Īśopaniṣad. Last time I believe we spoke, right? Madhvacharya, Baldev Vidyabhushan, Vedant Desika, and Bhakti Thakur. Several of our acharyas have given commentary, and Srila Prabhupada also wrote on this particular text. So Baldev Vidyabhushan actually includes this verse in his commentary of Īśopaniṣad. So this verse is actually not part of Īśopaniṣad, first of all, or to call it Upanishad that way. This verse was introduced or added by Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan in his commentary to Īśopaniṣad. So from where this verse comes, so Jiva Goswami writes this verse in his Sandarbha, if I'm correct, and the same verse was used by Baldev Vidyabhushan in his commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So it's actually a standard aphorism which actually establishes the fact that there is a supreme personality of Godhead who is the controller, proprietor, owner, and most importantly, the creator of everything that we can survey. So this Īśopaniṣad, the book that we are about to read, primarily establishes that there is a supreme personality of Godhead. You remember last time when we were talking about Vedic scriptures, we talked about there are 6 systems of philosophy which are based on the understanding of different philosophers of Vedic literature. So we had Karma Mimamsa philosophy, like that. We had 6, we call it 6 darshan also, let's call it 6 philosophies also. And all the 6 systems of philosophy actually did not recognize Lord to be absolute or to be the supreme. There was a Sankhya philosophy where the idea was the atom or the combination of atoms is the cause of the creation. So this Īśopaniṣad is a very important text of the Upanishad where the subject matter of absolute truth or subject matter of Supreme Lord is very clearly established, that there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, this text or Īśopaniṣad in itself does not establishes who is that Supreme Personality of Godhead. So looking at this verse here, this verse says that there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead. And how is that Supreme Personality of Godhead is being addressed as Om. Now the question comes, who Om refers to? What does Om means? We'll take a look at it. But this is the point here. So this invocation is put here. It's just like when you're writing a thesis. So before writing a thesis, you write an introduction, or maybe before introduction, you have an abstract. So it's something like that, which is kind of giving you an indication of what this book called as Īśopaniṣad is going to teach us. Īśopaniṣad establishes the presence of Supreme Personality of Godhead, who in this verse is being addressed as Om. Now, what does Om mean? What does it refer to? Bhagavad Gita chapter 17, Lord Shri Krishna says, the sound of Omkara is nothing but it refers to I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, in Srimad Bhagavatam, in 9th canto comes a verse, probably you all can see on the screen right now. Eka eva pura veda pranavaha sarvavan maya devo narayano nanya eko gnirvanna evacha. Srimad Bhagavatam 9th canto 14th chapter 48th verse. Very interesting. It is said, in the Satya Yuga, the first millennium, all the Vedic mantras were included in one mantra, that is Pranava, that is the sound of Om. the root of all Vedic mantras. In other words, the Atharva Ved alone was the source of all Vedic knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, was the only worshipable deity. There was no recommendation for the worship of the demigods. Fire was one only, and the only order of life in human society was known as Hamsa. Let's take a look at the purport. We'll have a better understanding. Somebody would like to read the purport?
Yeah, the Prabhu with the screen name QCOMBTD.
In Satyuga, there was only one. I'm reading it from the mobile. Is it there in the book also?
No, I'm quoting this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. It is not given in the text of Īśopaniṣad. So for those who have a clear visibility of screen,
Maybe Leela Nandini Mataji.
Okay, this is taking a little too long a time. I'll continue reading it. Maybe Anita Prabhu, maybe you can call on them whose camera is on and you know that they're actually, attentive and ready to read out.
All right. All right.
That'll take too much of time. Anita Prabhu, you go ahead, you read out.
In Satyuga, there was only one Veda, not four. Later, before the beginning of Kali Yuga, this one Veda, the Atharva Veda, or some way, the Yajur Veda, was divided into four: Samaha, Yajur, Rag, and Atharva, for the facility of human society. In Satyuga, the only mantra was Omkar, Om Tat Sat. The same name Omkar is manifest in the mantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Unless one is Brahmana, one cannot utter Omkara and get the desired result. But in Kali Yuga, almost everyone is Shudra, unfit for pronouncing the Pranam Omkara. Therefore, the Shastras have recommended the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Omkara is a mantra or a Mahamantra, and Hare Krishna is also a Mahamantra. The purpose of pronouncing Omkara is to address the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Continue.
And the purpose of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is the same. Hare, O energy of the Lord. Krishna, O Lord Krishna. Hare, O energy of the Lord. Ramaha, O Supreme Lord, O Supreme Enjoyer. The only worshipable Lord is Hari, who is the goal of the Vedas. By worshipping the demigods, one worships the different parts of the Lord, just as one might water the branches and twigs of a tree. But worshipping Narayan, the all-inclusive Supreme Personality of Godhead, is like pouring water on the roots of the tree, thus supplying water to the trunk, branches, twigs, leaves, and so on.
So we can pause here. This covers the context that we were discussing. So here, you can look through this verse, which we quoted from the 9th canto, who this Om refers to, and Prabhupada mentioning about here in the purport, in the Satya Yuga, the only mantra was Omkara, and the same name Omkara is manifest in this mantra of Hare Krishna. That is also Prabhupada explains in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Although I thought of quoting this because it also clarified the subject matter of how prior to Kali Yuga, there was only one Veda. So as I said, there are different names. Sometimes it is said Atharva, like Prabhupada is quoting, and Prabhupada is saying some says it is Yajur Veda, which was later on divided in Kali Yuga, at the beginning of Kali Yuga by Srila Vyasa. So you will see, interestingly, most part of the book, of course, not everywhere, but at least in the initial phases, Srila Prabhupada nowhere mentions Krishna. Even if you look into the purport, not even once Srila Prabhupada will mention about Krishna. Now, Srila Prabhupada definitely knows who this Om refers to, who this absolute truth is, but Srila Prabhupada not even once talks about Krishna in the whole of the purport. Prabhupada at max will say complete whole, the supreme absolute truth, kind of word Srila Prabhupada would use. And I believe all of you who have read Prabhupada books or who read Prabhupada books, you might have noticed that Prabhupada never ever misses out an opportunity of, including the name of Lord Shri Krishna. Even if there is no reference of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prabhupada will still include the point, the surrender to Supreme Personality of Godhead is the goal of life. So here is my question to all of you, which I want you to think as we progress through our discussion. Why Srila Prabhupada did not include Krishna's name right at the invocation translation of the puppet here? Although Prabhupada knows, who this Om refers to. Why Prabhupada kept it ambiguous? So it's a question for all of you. We'll continue with the discussion. I'll not take an answer now. When I complete with this whole invocation mantra, then again I'll come back to the question and then we'll take for some answers on that. All right. So let's begin with our puppet here. So I believe last time I spoke to all of you how we're going to read out. We read a paragraph and then we give a title to it. So for first 1 or 2 verses, we'll cultivate that practice. Okay. After that, I will give you the titles because otherwise it'll become too long. So here I want all of you, maybe one of our students can read out the paragraph, first paragraph. And I want all of you to think what could be the title for the paragraph. You remember we discussed this at the conclusion of the last session, some effective means of reading Prabhupada books. So read a paragraph, give a title, not too long, not too vague, best is precise and concise. And I had given a homework, if I'm correct. I had given a homework that do this exercise for introduction. And then on the front page, write down all the titles. How many of you did that exercise? Can you all lower down your hands, by the way, right now? Because everyone hands it up, so I'll get confused. If you lower down your hand, and then tell me, how many of you completed the exercise? Okay, so we have few of them. Oh, great. Congratulations. Thank you so much that some of you read it. I hope you would have. Did you felt beneficial? Now you don't have to go through the whole introduction. If you go through the title, you know what Prabhupada spoke about, right? See, you have by-hearted the whole paragraph. Now imagine you have to give a class on the subject matter of what is Vedas. Within 5 minutes, you can prepare your notes, isn't it? Just take a photo of the titles, go and speak confidently. If you don't have this written, how much headache you'll have just to speak on the subject matter of Vedas, to say like that, okay? Let's go back into this. Nithai Prabhu, we can have somebody to read the first paragraph, and then we'll like to hear some of the titles from the students.
Yeah, so maybe Shivam Prabhu and Priya Mataji.
The complete whole or the supreme absolute truth is the complete personality of Godhead. Realization of impersonal Brahman or of Paramatma, the super soul, is in complete realization of the absolute complete. The supreme personality of Godhead is Satchit Ananda Vigraha. Realization of impersonal Brahman is realization of his Sat feature or his aspect of eternity. And Paramatma realization is realization of his Sat and Chit features, his aspects of eternity and knowledge. But realization of the personality of Godhead is realization of all the transcendental features, Sat, Chit and Anand, bliss. When one realizes the Supreme Person, he realizes these aspects of the absolute truth in their completeness. Vigraha means form, thus the complete whole is not formless. If he were formless, or if he were less than his creation in any other way, he could not be complete. The complete whole must contain everything both within and beyond our experience, otherwise he cannot be complete.
Okay, great, thank you. Any suitable title? Anyone can go ahead here, whoever wants to speak up, maybe I don't know how, if they have, right,
Manisha Mataji Shweta Mataji.
Realization of absolute truth.
Realization of absolute truth. Okay, great, correct. Thank you. Harilalji saying complete personality. Satyajay, 3 aspects of this. Realization of all aspects. So, see, there is nothing right or wrong, okay? This is how the best you have understood it. And more or less, it's all correct. But as I said, best for us, for our purpose of easy recall, we can try to keep as short a title possible. And here is what I have kept as a title. The title for first paragraph is The Supreme Absolute Truth. Does it suffice? The Supreme Absolute Truth, if you have read the purport carefully, now you know the Absolute Truth exists at 3 levels: Brahman, Paramatma, and the Bhagwan realization. So the first paragraph is talking about this along with the form versus formless. So let's take a look. So Prabhupada in that purport talks about this particular verse that comes in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmaiti paramatmaiti bhagavan iti shabdyate. So Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan realization. So on the screen here, the first column talks about level of realization. And what is the aspect of that absolute truth which is realized at Brahman level is Sat, which means eternity. At Paramatma, the realization is a step further where eternity plus knowledge. And ahead of that, the complete realization is called as Bhagavan realization, where along with Sat and Chit, eternity and knowledge, there is also a realization and experience of Ananda. And the third column talks about who are the seekers of these levels of realizations. So Gyanis are the seekers of Brahman realizations. Yogis are the seeker of Paramatma realization. And Bhaktas are the seeker of the personal form of Lord or the personal realization. So through this book, Īśopaniṣad, Srila Prabhupada actually set us a debate. It's an unending debate coming from the beginning of time. And the subject of the debate is Supreme Lord formless or does it have a form? So Vedic scriptures does not speak on the subject matter, does God exist or not? Vedic scriptures implicitly states that Lord exists, just like the invocation says, Lord exists and he's the source of everything. Here, the Vedic scripture or the invocation mantra is not justifying Lord exists. So there is no question of debate on the subject, does God exist or not? So that is not a debate. Debate has existed maybe in Kali Yuga, where our philosophy or Vedic philosophy got divided into theism and atheism. I believe you remember last time I spoke about theism means the 6th darshan and atheism means Buddhism and Jainism, where they rejected Vedic scriptures. So the debate is on the subject of does Lord have form or formless? So through this book, Srila Prabhupada settles the score and very clearly establishes through his purports that absolute truth is a person. And the verses, Upanishad, the verses which are quoted in this Īśopaniṣad that we're going to read ahead, very clearly establishes that Krishna or the absolute truth is having a form. And the formless, those who believe Lord is formless, in English, they are loosely called as impersonalism or impersonalist. So you have to be very careful of the usage of this word impersonalist. And also when you're reading Prabhupada books, you have to see the context in which impersonalist word is used. There are 2 types of impersonalists. I'm just going to introduce them right now because the word impersonalism or impersonalist will come again and again all through this Īśopaniṣad. So I thought, why don't we explain or clarify this terminology right in the beginning so you have an understanding. There are 2 types of impersonalism or impersonalist. One is called as Brahmavadi, second is called as Mayavadi. Who are Brahmavadis? Brahmavadis are those who are settled with Brahman realization and in other words, they're not making endeavor or they have not realized through their practice of spirituality that there is a Bhagavan realization. And they're happy, satisfied with whatever realization they have understood about the Lord as formless. But what is Mayavadi? So whenever you read Prabhupada's books, and Prabhupada is speaking very strongly against impersonalist, that is not Brahmavadi, that is Mayavadi. And same subject is discussed in Bhagavad Gita also. So Mayavadis are those who say Jagan Mithya, everything is false. And this philosophy was established by Shankaracharya. Why he did that, how he did that, it will be a subject matter of one of the future session. But from Shankaracharya and from his descendants, this Mayavadi cult, Mayavadi philosophy became popular in India and around India. What it means or what it says is that everything is false, this material creation is false, our form is false. The Lord, when he descends into this world, his form is also false. You are Narayan, Soham Asmi, I am that. I am also Narayan, you are also Narayan, everyone is Narayan, everyone is God. There's no difference between me and Lord Ram. To give an example, during Prabhupada's time, some of our Prabhupada disciples who were all Western bodied, they had attempted to go to Jagannath Puri. So I believe some of you, most of you will be aware, Jagannath Puri temple have a very strict rule not to allow non-Hindus. So when this Western bodied devotees with genuine desire to take the darshan of Lord Jagannath attempted to enter the temple, they were rejected. And when Prabhupada heard this, Prabhupada was very angry that this kind of a discrimination is made against his devotees who are so sincerely practicing. So I believe it was Jayapataka Maharaj who was sent by Srila Prabhupada to go and meet the head of the Shankaracharya Mutt in Jagannath Puri. So because they were the decision-making body there for Jagannath Puri temple. So when Jayapataka Maharaj, I believe it was Jayapataka Maharaj, so don't quote me on the name, but as far as I remember the story. So when Jayapataka Maharaj went and met the head of the Shankaracharya Mutt, and he said, this is a request from our spiritual master that we want to take darshan of the Jagannathji, and if you can allow us, the Western body disciple of Prabhupada, so we can go and take darshan of Jagannathji. So very interestingly, the head of the Shankaracharya Mutt said, well, there's no problem at all, but because you have already taken my darshan, you need not take darshan of Jagannath, because Jagannath and I are same. And then Prabhupada heard it. Of course, you can understand and imagine what would be the response of Prabhupada when Prabhupada would have been told about this particular thing. So their idea is, I am Narayan, you are Narayan, everything is false, and the forms of the Lord, like Lord Ram, Lord Shri Krishna, they are nothing but like us, Brahman. They, for the purpose of descending into the material world, they are provided a body by the material nature. They come here and they provide they perform some incredible feats and they go back, but there is no difference between them and I. And that's the reason Prabhupada very strongly condemns impersonalists in his purpose. To give you an example, when our disciples of Srila Prabhupada in the beginning days, when they began to read Srila Prabhupada's book, particularly Bhagavad Gita and other books, time and again Prabhupada would speak very strongly against this Mayavadis, who Prabhupada in English would write as impersonalists, and chastise them. Because it's a serious offense. You're saying Lord doesn't exist. It's actually it's a hidden form of atheism. By saying that there is no God, you are God, I am God, and then they concocted the whole Daridra Narayan concept and whatnot. It's actually a hidden atheism. It's a subset of Buddhism in that way. So when 2-3 of Prabhupada disciples like Brahmanand Prabhu and others, when for the first time they came along with Srila Prabhupada to India, they all were thinking that who is this Mayavadi who Prabhupada talks about in his purport so much? And they all thought that this Mayavadi is a person who probably Prabhupada had a fight with him in India, and that's the reason in his purports he's criticizing this Mayavadis a lot. So they thought when we go to India, will find this Mayavadi and beat him. So when they reached the airport back in Delhi, when they came for the first time, took some courage and asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, finally we are in India. We want to find out that Mayavadi who you so strongly chastise in your purpose. Please let us know where is he, and we'll go and take revenge. We'll go and punish him. Looks like he offended you. And then Prabhupada understood, and Prabhupada said, hey, wait a second. By the way, that Mayavadi is in the heart of each one of you and everyone else, which means those who consider the Lord's form to be false. So there is a verse which we have quoted here from 3rd canto, which categorically distinguish Brahmavadis from Mayavadis. This is the verse where 4 Kumaras, they went to Vaikuntha, and when Lord Vishnu came out, they smelled the aroma of the tulsi kept on the lotus feet of the Lord. And that's what Sukadeva Goswami says. Very beautiful verse. Tasyara vindayanasya padaravinda kinjal kamishra tulasi makaranda vayu antagata savivarena chakarate sham Sanshobham akshar jusham vichitta tanvo. When the breeze carrying the aroma of tulsi leaves from the toes of the lotus feet of the personality of God had entered the nostril of those sages, they experienced a change both in body and in mind, even though they were attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding. So this refers to Kumaras. So they were not Mayavadis, but Brahmavadis. Their understanding before this incident was Lord is formless. But when they got the mercy of a devotee like Tulsi Maharani, they matured in their understanding and then they became personalist. So Brahmavadis are not offenders. It's just that they don't have that realization of the absolute. They do not misconstrue or distort the version of Vedic scriptures. However, Mayavadis, they consider everything as false in this world except for their false philosophy. For them, their false philosophy is only true and everything else is false. And for that reason, Srila Prabhupada chastises them. So that's the first part of it. Now, second thing which is being described in the purport is form or formless. Prabhupada mentions in the last few lines of the first paragraph, if the absolute truth is formless, or if he is less than his creation in any other thing, he cannot be complete. The complete whole must have everything both within our experience and beyond our experience. Otherwise, he cannot be complete. So this shloka, Om Purnam Adha Purnam Idam, declares absolute truth to be complete. So Prabhupada is using that logic and presenting a case here. Prabhupada says, if the shloka says the absolute truth, the supreme complete whole, is complete, for him to be complete, he should also be formless. Because if you say he cannot be formless, he only has a form, then the scarcity or the lack of formless becomes an incompleteness. And that is a point. First thing. Second thing, Prabhupada says, when I as an individual, when all of us as an individuals can have a form, how can we say the complete whole does not have a form? To say the complete whole is only formless is also an incomplete understanding of the complete whole. Because when you call something to be complete, it cannot have any kind of deficiency or lack. That's the point. And then Prabhupada gives an example, not over here, but we find this example commonly given by Srila Prabhupada, where he says, sun and sunshine. Sunshine is a formless representation of the sun, which is the form. So question comes, what comes first, form or formless? The formless sunshine is created by the form sun. Therefore, the formless is not an independent existence. It is a dependent existence on the independent form, which means the absolute truth. So that's what Prabhupada explains here. The Lord exists in three levels: the formless Brahman, the Paramatma realization, and the form, the Bhagavan realization, like this. So somebody asked Srila Prabhupada, if Lord is complete, as you are explaining in your books, does it mean that he also have ugly features? That's an interesting question, isn't it? If there is an ugliness in this world, then if you say that Krishna, the Absolute Truth, is complete, then it means there should be an ugliness within the Absolute Truth also. And Srila Prabhupada immediately retorted, yes, there is also presence of ugly features in the Absolute Truth. And then Prabhupada quoted 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He said, when Krishna showed his Kala Rupa avatar, expansion or incarnation to Arjuna, Arjuna got so terrified, he fell on his knees. With folded hands, he began to beg, my dear Lord, please forgive me for asking you to show me this universal form of your Lord. I was expecting some entertainment, but it turned out to be a horror movie. I'm just joking here. I'm just putting into a context. But Arjuna was so terrified, he began to beg the Lord, my dear Lord, can you please take off this form and come back into your two-handed form? I feel most comfortable there. And that's the thing. So when we say Lord is complete, which means everything comes from him and everything about him is all perfect. For an example, Parikshit Maharaj, right? He asked Sukadeva Goswami, that comes in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. But he said, it seems that the Lord is partial to his devotees. He protects devotees and destroys demons. And same kind of a subject matter comes in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna says, Samoham sarva bhuteshu name, dveshti asti na priya. So what is the other meaning of being complete? Other meaning of being complete means is all perfect. Whatever the Absolute Truth does, when he gives favor to his devotees, is all perfect. When he punishes demons, is also all perfect. To give an example, somebody asked Srila Prabhupada or Swamiji, does your God become angry? Prabhupada said yes. But Krishna's anger or Absolute Truth's anger is very different than our anger. An example is given in the 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the pastime of Ashwatthama. I believe that's a place where it is mentioned. Ashwatthama, who had killed the 5 sons of Draupadi and also the rest of the remaining, Pandu's Sena, Pandava's Sena. And Draupadi had asked Arjuna to catch Ashwatthama and bring. Both Krishna, Arjuna were wild and angry. And it is described very beautifully in the 1st canto section where the story comes in one of the verses about the difference between the Lord and Arjuna. It is said, Arjuna was angry, Krishna was super angry. So when we are angry, one of the manifestations of our anger is, we begin to bite our lips and our eyes become red, angry, red hot. It says, somebody is angry is visible in the eyes. So anger in Arjuna was visible in his eyes, with his eyes becoming red hot. But when Sukadeva Goswami describes Lord Shri Krishna's eyes, he says it was as cooling, as pleasant, like lotus flower. And that is the point Srila Prabhupada is saying. Yes, Krishna becomes, of course, I'm saying Krishna here. Krishna is not mentioned in the purport here. But in the context, Prabhupada says, yes, Krishna becomes angry, but his anger and our anger is different. Our anger is destructive. But Krishna, position being absolute, being complete, his anger is all auspicious. So right now we are discussing another meaning of the word complete, which means all perfect. Any examples that you can think where Lord Shri Krishna's anger actually brought about blessing to the recipient of Krishna's anger? Any guesses? Yes.
Bhishma Pitama.
Bhishma Pitama. You're talking about when Krishna had picked up the chariot wheel, he ran to Bhishma?
Putana.
Yeah, the Putana. You can name any demon for that purpose. Any demon or demoness, and anyone and everyone who are assembled in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, like that. Yes, correct. That's the correct thing, and it is very clearly described in the scriptures. Only Krishna or Lord Vishnu can award liberation or moksha, and even to his own enemies who are killed. Just like a classic case of Shishupal. That really confused Yudhishthira Maharaj at the end of Rajasuya Yagya. Shishupal had used such an abusive words, yet Shishupal, when Lord Shri Krishna directed his Sudarshan Chakra to chop off his head, the soul came out of the body of Shishupal and went and entered Lord Shri Krishna's body, and he achieved a Sayuchi Mukti. So Yudhishthira Maharaj asked Narad Muni later on, as it described in Mahabharata, that how can it be possible? And the same thing comes in the 7th canto, 1st chapter, where the subject matter is taken again. How is it possible? And there Narad Muni says, well, Krishna's anger, Krishna's affection, whatever Lord does, is all auspicious, is all perfect. And that is the point here, the meaning of completeness. All right, so let's go to the next paragraph now. Somebody would like to read the next paragraph? So the first paragraph is titled as The Complete Whole or the Absolute Truth. Please do write a title for yourself, okay? Right away as you're going through that. Somebody else can read the second paragraph.
Satya Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu, Hare Krishna. The complete whole, the personality of Godhead, has immense potencies, all of which are as complete as he is. Thus, this phenomenal world is also complete in itself. The 24 elements of which this material universe is a temporary manifestation are arranged to produce everything necessary for the maintenance and subsistence of this universe. No other unit in the universe need make an extraneous effort to try to maintain the universe. The universe functions on its own time scale, which is fixed by the energy of the complete whole. And when that schedule is completed, this temporary manifestation will be annihilated by the complete arrangement of the complete whole.
All right. So what's the title? How would you like to title this paragraph? Please go ahead.
Complete whole.
The complete whole. Okay. What else?
Temporary manifestation.
Temporary manifestation. Okay. How many of you have that experience? Let's say you're reading a shloka of Bhagavad Gita. You read the translation, you read the purport. By the time you finish the purport, you forget what was the whole subject about. How many had that experience? You have completed reading the purport, you don't know what was the translation about. If you have that experience, make sure from now onward you make this as a practice, okay? So whatever you read, you give a title. Because it takes hardly a second for you to go back and look at the title and understand what was the subject. Otherwise, our mind gets an excuse, oh, who's going to read it again? That's the point. Bhakti Yoga Center. Automatic universal machine. You sounded like you created a new washing machine. Okay, great. So here is what I have given a title. The material world is complete, as Prabhupada writes in one of the lines. Oh, the slide is not visible, I guess. Let me just show the slide again. The material world is complete. This point is repeated if you see. No extraneous effort by any other unit is required for this maintenance. And who Prabhupada is talking about? The material world. Once again, there is nothing right and wrong answer. You can write whatever you feel most appropriate, and that helps you to recall the whole paragraph. So here in the beginning, Lord Shri Krishna, Srila Prabhupada talks about Lord Shri Krishna's immense potencies. Lord Shri Krishna has 3 prominent energies that we call as Samvit, Sandhini, Haladini, Shakti. Samvit represents Sat, Sandhini represents Sat and Chit, or you can say Samvit, Sandhini. Haladini is a pleasure. Samvit refers to knowledge, with knowledge. Yeah, Samvit refers to knowledge. Sandhini refers to Sat feature, and Haladini refers to the pleasure potency. Apart from that, we also know of Antaranga, Bahiranga, and Tathastha Shakti, like that. Next, Prabhupada says, this phenomenal or material world is also complete by itself. And Prabhupada talks about the 24 elements of which this material universe is a temporary manifestation. And everything is created in this, or produced in this creation for the maintenance and subsistence of this universe. So if you look at the mindset of the modern people today, we're going to talk about it in maybe in a minute or two, about why people don't believe in God. And one of the claim is they say there are so many flaws in this creation. If Lord was there, then he must have created a perfect creation. We'll look into the flaws in a while, but think about it. Is really? And therefore, today modern science is trying to manipulate with every aspect of nature. I remember when I grew up, I had never ever dreamt that in future I would have to purchase drinking water. I believe all of you, when you travel by flight, when you travel by train, whatever way you're traveling, all of us probably have to purchase water. And when you grew up, in those days, nobody had to purchase water. So although it is kind of presented as we are making an advancement, but actually they first destroy the nature and then they try to fix it by saying we are providing a solution because the nature is incomplete. No, look at the universe, the movements of the planet planet Earth itself has been rotating. Srila Prabhupada in, I believe, 8th canto, not 8th canto, in the 7th canto, as well as the 2nd canto, Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the episode of Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, where the earth fell from its orbit into the Garbhodak ocean. Skipping the details of it, Prabhupada says there in that purport, the Lord has created all these cosmic entities in such a way that they remain in their orbit and they continue to rotate and revolve in their orbit for all the time to come, except for that one time, because Hiranyaksha had drilled into the earth so much, because of which the internal force by which the earth was maintaining its momentum, because of so much drilling, earth lost its balance and fell from the orbit. So the imperfectness was not in the creation. Imperfectness was created in the creation by the unwanted interference done by the living entity, like that. So material world is complete. That is what Prabhupada is saying, as Krishna is not required on a moment-to-moment basis. Nature's orderly behavior is a proof of God's arrangement. Every morning, sun rises. Every evening, there is a sunset. There is a change of season. Then there is the monsoon. It's an orderly behavior where things are happening on their own. And it's very easy to predict what would be the time for sunrise, what would be the time of sunset. And that itself proves the orderly, the sequence of nature's phenomenon actually is evidence that has to be a God's arrangement. It cannot just happen on its own like that. So, for example, law of gravity is also a sign of God. And Krishna lifting the Govardhan indicates that he is beyond the law of gravity. Getting a point? Law of gravity keeps us on this planet, brings everything back onto this planet. However, Krishna lifting Govardhan hill with his tiny finger, violating the law of gravity, indicates that he's actually the master or creator. Then only he could transcend it. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada says, expert management, we actually can draw a management principle from this. And Prabhupada mentions the expert management means everything happens smoothly. And it appears as if nobody is managing. That is what expert management, wherein nobody has to call out for the manager. The management is done in such a way, everyone is happy and everything is happening without unnecessary interference. So material world is like that, where Krishna's direct intervention is not required. Lord Shri Krishna speaks about in Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter also, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina. Although everything has manifested, but I am not to be found in this creation. I'm not present like that. Means I'm detached from it in that way, Krishna says. So how does Krishna manages it? We learn again from Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, where Krishna says it is done through the Devatas. Devatas are the delegated authorities of the Lord who manage the different universal affairs like that. And he's empowered by the Supreme Lord. So for creation, there is a time of creation, there is a maintenance, and there is destruction. And for destruction also, there is a deity that is called as Lord Shiva. Srimad Bhagavatam 8th canto, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, in the pastime of Samudra Manthan Leela, when Devatas approached Lord Shiva for drinking halahal, and there is a chapter, one whole chapter where Devatas are making prayers to Lord Shiva as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very interesting, because Bhagavatam establishes Krishna as the Supreme Personality of God, and now you have a chapter where Devatas are praising Shiva as a Supreme Personality of Godhead, and sometime before, the same Devatas had worshipped Vishnu also as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how do we reconcile and how do we understand? So Prabhupada explains, who is Lord Shiva? Lord Shiva and Vishnu are non-different. Who is called as Vishnu? The personality of Godhead is called as Vishnu when he is entirely aloof from the material nature. Who is Lord Shiva? It is also the personality of Godhead who is in contact with the modes of material nature. In other words, Lord Vishnu, it is Sankarshan who expands himself in the form of Lord Shiva for the purpose of destruction of the universe. So like that, if we study scriptures and if we even look around, we can see there is a complete arrangement being done for the sustenance and maintenance. We have air to breathe. We have a drinking water that comes through the rainwater, as a system created by the Lord, where the salty water of the ocean is converted into drinking water through the whole phenomenon of evaporation turning into rain clouds and coming here. So at this point of time, I'd like to show you one video, very interesting video that actually tells you how the Lord has created his creation, which is complete in itself and has provided means for everyone's livelihood, sustenance, and maintenance. Unfortunately, as a human being in today's time, we take too much anxiety. It's primarily because we don't have understanding of the subject matter. So let me just play that video out.
Yes, Prabhu.
This is Ampulex compressor, the jeweled cockroach wasp.
So let me just give you a little background, and then I'll stop speaking. You can watch it. It's a story of a wasp being studied by the scientist, of how wasp procreates or sustains itself. Incredible. When I saw it for the first time, you can call it, I was stunned, stupefied, how incredible this whole creation and the nature is. Please watch it carefully.
She is on the hunt for something. And this is it, a cockroach. She approaches it carefully, as the roach is far bigger than she is. Once she is close enough, she strikes, stinging it twice. The first sting disables the roach's front legs. The second she delivers directly into the insect brain. But this does not kill the roach, nor is it even paralyzed. The wasp's venom simply disables the roach's escape reflex. Were you to turn on the light, it would not scatter. While the venom begins to take effect, the roach grooms itself compulsively. The wasp waits nearby. Having waited long enough, the wasp returns to her prey. Vibrating her wing muscles like this allows her to sever the roach's antenna. Scientists think that by tasting the roach's blood, she can gauge how effective her sting has been. Too little venom and the roach will recover before she is done with it. Too much and it may die too soon. Satisfied, the wasp leads the stupefied insect to her burrow. She probes the roach's body, looking for just the right place. Once she has found it, she lays on it a single egg. The roach is not sustenance for her, but rather for her young. Now she must protect her investment. She carefully seals the burrow with twigs and rocks. A process that may take 30 minutes or more. Inside the burrow, the roach remains, alive and well, but unable to escape. The egg will soon hatch. As a grub, the young insect will bore its way into the cockroach's body and consume its internal organs in the order most likely to keep it alive for as long as possible. 1 month later, a new wasp emerges. Ready to begin the process again.
Hare Krishna. Any thoughts? After hearing your thoughts, we'll pause for a break. Anyone wants to share what they just learned, what just happened? So systematically, the wasp knew where exactly on the brain of the cockroach or the head of the cockroach she has to sting. And after that, she knew what should be the pressure and how much she has to sting so that the cockroach does not die. And then she dissects the body of the cockroach, puts her, as a baby inside, you want to call it. And then, with her stinging, she makes the cockroach go into coma. Because if the cockroach dies, and the body will be of no use. So now the child which she has put inside the body of this cockroach germinates and survives by eating the cockroach from within and gets nourished. And like that, over a span of 1 month or something, I believe that was the time they said, and then comes out the new wasp, and the process of creation continues. Hare Krishna. So isn't that something what Lord Srila Prabhupada was mentioning here? There is a complete arrangement or a perfect arrangement for everything and for everyone in the creation, even for a tiny living entity like a wasp. How advanced actually. So with that, I'll pause here if in case anyone has any comment on this. And when we meet after break, we can definitely take few questions. Any quick thoughts on the video? I hope nobody is a little bit feeling vomiting sensation or something after watching this. So please excuse me if in case you're feeling a little, you want to puke or something, you can take a break. Maybe go and get a glass of water. All right, Nithya, plan to do anything? Anyone has anything to say, or we'll pause for a break?
Yeah, Prabhu, if they want, because I have allowed them to unmute themselves. So if someone wants to speak, they can free to unmute and speak.
Only about the lesson from the video, okay? I'm not taking any questions right now. We'll do that after the break.
Haribol Prabhu, I think Prabhu, we always falsely claim that something we have invented or discovered. We always think that it's mastermind. But
Hare
when
Krishna. So thank you very much for joining us on this GBC SPT live conversation on devotee care called Vaishnav Seva, a weekly dialogue conversation with different leaders across ISKCON to inspire and embed a culture of devotee care within ISKCON temples
I
and
guess
communities.
this is my YouTube only going on.
On behalf of the...
Sorry. That was my YouTube only. That was video being played on the YouTube now. So the next video started. I'm sorry for that. I was thinking, who's playing this video? Okay. Yes, go ahead. I've just paused it.
No, Prabhuji was just saying that sometimes we feel that this is us, or we try to take false credit of whatever we do. But I think it's God behind everyone, even animals, like we just saw how they have been given the knowledge by the Lord to sustain themselves in the context of today's topic as well. Like everybody has been given the knowledge by the Lord, how they can maintain themselves, and has been provided by all the resources as well by the Lord.
Fantastic. And there's something more to it that I would add after we meet after a break. But yes, that's even for tiny living entities. And Srila Prabhupada repeatedly mentioned this in his purpose. Everyone is being provided for the sustenance. The elephants who eat tons and tons more than a human being. Yet that elephant never goes even a single day without food. And today the human being have to really work so hard just to get 2-time meals, isn't it? So that is a little bit ironical. Just like these days we read stories about somebody committing suicide. Falana Dikana, man and woman committed suicide, they hanged themselves and whatnot. But not even once we have heard a story where somebody's pet dog or the monkey on the street committed suicide by hanging from a branch of a tree. Isn't it? But it does happen in human beings, actually. I remember I was back in America in those days, and I was in Raleigh, North Carolina. So along with it was an American friend only. So we had gone out to this mall. So he had to go and quickly grab something from there. And there was this Doug's cleaning. I mean, D-O-U-G, if you want to pronounce Doug like that. And outside there were plenty of dogs lined up. Whoever was entering that clinic was going along with the dog. So in general, in America, you see people even go for jogging, they go with a pet dog. So that was not something surprising. But it was literally surprising that nobody went alone. Everyone went inside with a dog. So when a friend of mine came out and I said, hey, what's going on? This is pretty strange. There's this healthcare center, and everyone who's entering that healthcare center is entering with a dog. What does it mean? So he said, actually, this is not a clinic for human beings. This is a clinic for dogs to treat their mental disease. I said, when did dogs begin to have mental disease? He says, since the time they were adopted as a pet by human beings, they became mental. And in America, they have got a dog's mental clinic like that. So, all right, we'll pause it for that. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Yeah, it's happening. So we are discussing the invocation, and we started with talking about what is invocation all about, what is the purpose of it, and then we talked about what is the background of this verse. Actually, it is not found in the Upanishad. It has been introduced by Baldev Vidyabhushan, and which he also used in his Vedanta Sutra commentary like that. And then we asked, who is Om referred to here in this shloka? We gave you a reference from the 9th canto Srimad Bhagavatam. 9th canto, yeah. Om refers to Lord Shri Krishna. What was the sound of Omkara or Pranava, which was chanted in Satyayuga, because it requires certain prerequisites or qualifications, considering Kali Yuga residents. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of God, had descended to give the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And then we looked into the purport, where the very first the point of the very first paragraph Srila Prabhupada discussed about the absolute truth existing at 3 levels, as well as form versus formless. Hare Krishna. Somebody saying something? Okay. Just one quick second. Are all of you able to see my screen?
Yes, Prabhu. Now not there. Now
Yeah.
not coming. Previously it was coming.
Correct. I just got a little confused.
Now it is coming.
Okay. Yeah. So, so form versus formless was discussed. So we had a discussion on that also. Then we read the second paragraph. The second paragraph, we gave the title as material world is complete. As the shloka says, Om Purnam Adha Purnam, Purnat Purnam Udachyate, like that. So we just saw the video of a wasp. Hare Krishna. Can we just mute everyone?
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Despite of having an orderliness in the creation, so much evidences, logically to understand the Lord exists, question arises, why yet many claim they cannot accept existence of God? So there is a Hare Krishna. Okay. So there is a religious group known as atheist. Now you might be wondering, why am I calling atheist as a religious group? I'll not go too much in details of it, but the point is religion. The word religion means a group of people sharing a common faith. So atheism is also a religion. And the definition of that religion is that there is no God. So what is the problem of atheists with this subject matter? Atheists, they say, if God existed, then why is he not kind to us? Why there is suffering? That is their point of conflict, which they don't get it. Because they say there's so much suffering, people die, there are so many diseases. If God existed, then he must have created a perfect world. But because this is not a perfect world, there are so many problems. There is a death, there is old age and disease. It means God didn't exist. It means we as human beings will take the responsibility of fixing the problems of this world. We make a human being ageless. We'll make a human being, even if he becomes old, we'll give him the creams and whatnot to make him look younger and whatnot. This is all, the background of atheistic idea. Now, that's atheist. Then there are certain pseudo-religions. According to them, the Lord has given us this world to enjoy life. How many of you have heard this? Maybe from your parents or from relatives, that Lord has sent us here to enjoy life. Remember, right? This is a very common thing back in India. Everyone says, Ishwar ne bheja hai hame, jeevan jeene ke liye. Enjoy karo. That is the whole purpose. So what is the background of this philosophy? From where did this? Nowhere in Bhagavad Gita, and as far as I have read Bhagavatam and other scriptures, nowhere it is mentioned the Lord have sent us here to enjoy. So what is the origin of this idea? The origin of this idea is Abrahamic religions. I will be speaking about Abrahamic religion and their philosophy as we build up our discussion. This idea comes from that philosophy or that religion or culture. So the atheist, you call them as scientists, more or less the same thing, atheistic scientists, you can call it. Their problem is because this is not a comfortable place, thus God does not exist, and we will fix it. So in an attempt to fix this world, they have only created more problems. And thus their contribution and interference has only made our life miserable. And the problems that we're facing today in the world, maybe the COVID, the air pollution, the water pollution, and whatnot, is all because of this man-made intervention. So what is our scriptures? What does Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam says on this subject matter? Lord Shri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 15, very categorically mentions, this is not our original home, but is a prison house. We are not the controllers, but controlled. We are not Swarat. As Sukdev Goswami begins Bhagavatam, the very first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Janmadhyasya yataha anvayat itaras chartheshu abhigna Swarat. Swarat means fully independent. We are not fully independent, but we are dependent. However, as Lord Shri Krishna explains in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where through the analogy of a banyan tree, inverted banyan tree, Lord Shri Krishna explains on that subject matter in that chapter that this material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. Perverted reflection means if there is a life of eternity in this world, it becomes a life, it's not immortal, it becomes mortal. You have a certain duration. If that's a world where you have unending happiness, happiness is temporary and short-lived like this. Another example, analogy is given to explain this creation, the world where we live in our scriptures is not a hotel, but a hospital. We tend to live our life in this world as if it is a hotel. Now, what is a hotel? When you go to a hotel, you expect a waiter to serve you. When you check into a hotel room, you pick up a phone from your room and you call in, and there is a bellboy waiting for you. Yes or no? So, under illusion, every living entity considers himself to be a controller, proprietor, and enjoyer, where he wants to be served. But again, our scripture indicates that this is not a hotel. This is an hospital. I'm making a second analogy to help you understand. In hotel, you choose and we are served whatever we choose. In hospital, we are given what is required for our well-being and not according to our desires. In hotel, our desires are fulfilled. In hospital, our desires are not fulfilled. Whatever is necessary for our well-being is provided. And sometimes we are given bitter medicine, which may not go well with our liking and taste. Therefore, because of this illusion, people in this world today are frustrated because they're considering their stay in a hospital as to a stay in a hotel. If somebody is under this illusion, he is bound to be frustrated and disturbed. And that's the reason why more and more of crises are happening in the personal lives of individual. Second thing, the scripture explains or raises a question. As we said, Abrahamic religion makes the point that we are here to enjoy life. So our scriptures, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam says, we are not here for enjoyment, we are here for reformation. So I hope you're keeping in line with the discussion, the 2 points I made. First thing is, this world is compared to be a prison house. And then I gave a second analogy, is of a hospital. Second point, this is not the place where we come to enjoy. This is a place for reformation. Like prison house, the prisoner is sent behind not to enjoy, but for reformation. So what we are supposed to get reformed of? We are supposed to get reformed of Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mad, Matsarya, the 6 eternal enemies, which continues with us with our contaminated mind. And we are punished in this world whenever we do not follow the laws of the nature through the medium of Durga Devi, who is a jailkeeper, and we are punished in the form of birth, death, old age, and disease, and adhyatmika, adhibhautik, adhidaivika, klesh. So this material world is complete for the purpose of reformation, not for the purpose of enjoyment. I'll repeat again. When Prabhupada says this material world is complete in itself, this material world is designed for the purpose of reformation, not for the purpose of enjoyment. Let's take a third analogy. This material world is also compared to a university. We will be talking about all these analogies in our Bhagavad Gita discussion. If in case you have attended our Gita Essence program, you might be familiar with these analogies. This world is also compared to a university where we undergo a study and we are supposed to graduate from this university. It means we are supposed to perform austerities here. It's a training ground. It is not a ground to enjoy life. That is a point. And when people don't understand this, they continue to suffer. Just like those who join college not for the purpose of study, but for enjoying life, even after 4 years, they continue their tenure in the first semester only. They score a century in failing semester after semester. And that's the point here. The second point that Prabhupada brings out in the purport is of, in the last line, Prabhupada says, the universe has its own time fixed by the energy of the complete whole, and when the time is complete, this temporary manifestation will be annihilated by the complete arrangement of the complete. In other words, Prabhupada talks about the universal management. So we all are aware of there are different devatas, 33 crore devatas which are talked about. Those all devatas are nothing but are presiding deities, post holders of different aspects of the universal affair, where each of these devatas, respectable deities or devatas, are being empowered by the Supreme Lord to function or execute the Lord's delegated authority, where they execute the purpose or the work for which they have been assigned with that post and position like that. And that is what Prabhupada mentions in the concluding point. So let's go to the third paragraph now. Somebody else can read the third paragraph. Hare Krishna. Who is managing?
Yeah, Prabhu, I'm managing. Varsha Mataji, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Madhu. Please read.
Thank you. All facilities are given to the small complete units, namely the living being, to enable them to realize the complete whole. All forms of incompleteness are experienced due to incomplete knowledge to the complete whole. The human form of life is a complete manifestation of consciousness of the living being, and it is obtained after evolving through 8400,000 species of life in the cycle of birth and death. If in this human life of full consciousness, the living entity does not realize his completeness in the relation to the complete whole, he loses the chance to realize his completeness and is again put into the evolutionary cycle by the law of material nature.
Yes, thank you. Any title for this? For you to come up with the title, you have to be attentive while reading, actually. Even if you get a little distracted, you cannot. Law of material nature, okay, nice. There is a focus on the subject of human being, if you pay attention. And what is being explained here, that human life among all the species is provided with all the facility for self-realization. In other words, human life in itself is complete to attain the goal of life. Am I making sense? Now you can shorten it, make it as concise as you want to make it. All right, let's go with the next paragraph. The fourth paragraph, right? Yes, the fourth paragraph. Somebody else can read.
Harish Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Because we do not know that there is complete arrangement in nature for our maintenance, we make efforts to utilize the resources of nature to create the so-called complete life of sense enjoyment. Because the living entity cannot enjoy the life of the senses without being dovetailed with the complete whole, the misleading life of sense enjoyment is illusion. The hand of a body is complete unit only as long as it is attached to the complete body. When the hand is severed from the body, it may appear like a hand, but it actually has none of the potencies of hand. Similarly, living beings are part and parcel of the complete whole, and if they are severed from the complete whole, the illusionary representation of completeness cannot be fully satisfied there.
Thank you. So in the previous paragraph, Srila Prabhupada was making a point why we undergo or we experience incompleteness. And Prabhupada said we experience incompleteness only on the account of incomplete knowledge of the complete. That was mentioned in the previous paragraph. And in this paragraph, Prabhupada is building up on that theme. So what would be the title according to you for this paragraph? Living being, part and parcel, okay. Here, the subject matter of incompleteness is discussed further. That is the key theme here. Enjoyment is illusion. Okay, nice. So let me show you what I have given a title here. Again, as I said, there's nothing right and wrong, okay? So the previous paragraph we had titled as Human Form Offers Complete Facility. And for this paragraph, one of the titles is Sense Gratification is Illusory Completeness. Because people who are engaging into sense gratification, which we find in plenty, they do so because they do not recognize that there is a complete arrangement in nature for their maintenance. And they make unnecessary efforts to utilize or to exploit the resources of nature to create so-called complete life of sense enjoyment. Yes, many times Prabhupada talks about Ugra Karma. All of you might have heard this Ugra Karma, which indicates to this huge industrial enterprises, the big complexes. So a very beautiful purport comes. This comes in 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in Samudra Manthan Leela only. There in Samudra Manthan Leela, when Surbhi cow appears from the Samudra Manthan, there Prabhupada in few purports talk about the importance of cow protection. There Prabhupada talks about unnecessary industrial enterprise and unemployment. Prabhupada says, according to Vedic culture, the best means of living a life is, a happy means of living a life is have a land, sow a crop, which will, after a while you'll get your vegetable, fruits, whatnot, and then maintain a cow from which you get milk, and you mix both of these products and you have varieties of dishes for you to enjoy. And that way, there's no question of unemployment. See, I read a whole of Mahabharata last year. Not even at one place I found that there was, some activist in the capital of Hastinapur who were filing a complaint against Duryodhana's rule because of unemployment. Even Duryodhana's rule, at that point of time, there was no unemployment. What to speak about under the rule of Yudhishthira Maharaj? Neither you read the same thing about Kamsa. When Kamsa came to power at Mathura, there was no question of unemployment. So Prabhupada talks about it. So this is a point here. All incompleteness, all problems in our life is because of incomplete knowledge of the absolute truth and of this creation, where because of not having faith in the Supreme Lord, we doubt that this creation has enough for our needs. And we keep on thinking, because there is no master, there is no controller, I need to fix it, and we need to grab everything for ourselves. And look what is the result of the society. Everyone is trying to grab more and more, possess more and more. And if we talk about the scientists and the enterprises, industrial enterprises, they're trying to exploit, manipulate everything. In India, up to the time of British rule, there were 4,000 varieties of rice. 4,000 varieties of rice. Now today we have handful, less than 200 varieties of rice available. And same goes true for all the kind of pulses. And what is the reason? Because when the British came to power, I'm not going to go into details of it, a little bit of history, but still, because we're going to go into history as we discuss this text, and now it is being enforced also. I don't know exactly if it is done at that length in India, but there are many countries where the farmers cannot sow the native seed. They're only allowed to do agriculture when they procure seeds from the seed bank. And what are the seed banks? These are nothing but GMO, genetically modified seeds, which are being procured. Now, earlier, nobody, if in case any one of your parents or grandparents were in agriculture, you would know nobody had to go to anyone to procure. You eat mango, there is a seed, throw it in the ground, take care of it, you get a banana tree. Oh, sorry, I mean to say mango tree. Oh, sorry, not a banana tree. I brought in the hybrid technology here. Actually, I was talking about mango, somehow I was thinking about banana, so that's the reason I got confused. So you throw a mango seed on the ground, you get a mango tree, but that is not allowed in many parts of the world today. And in India also, of course, the current government have opened native seed banks where the farmers are allowed to procure native seeds. But I believe there are certain rules and regulations around that. So that's the point I'm saying. That's the reason people experience incompleteness, which is being explained in the fourth paragraph. Let's go to the final paragraph of this purport. Please, someone read it out.
Leela Mataji, do you want to read?
The completeness of human life can be realized only when one engages in the service of the complete whole. All services in this world, whether social, political, communal, international, or even interplanetary, will remain incomplete until they are dovetailed with the complete whole. When everything is dovetailed with the complete whole, the attached parts and parcels also become complete in themselves.
So I'll give you the title to save time for this particular paragraph. So the point which is being established where Prabhupada is completing, the translation of the verse said, Om Purnam Adha Purnam Purnat Purnam Udachyate, which means from the absolute truth, the complete units are manifesting. So if this material world is complete in itself, then why a human being experiences incompleteness? Why does a human being complain of scarcity? Prabhupada says the living entity or human being experience incompleteness or complains of scarcity only because of its, lack of alignment, or Prabhupada says here, because, is not connected with the Supreme Lord, because of which he experiences. So how do we want to experience completeness? Prabhupada says it is only possible when a human form of life is engaged. The very first line of the last paragraph, is engaged in the service of the complete whole. Nowhere in the purport Prabhupada mentioned Krishna, but again and again Prabhupada keeps mentioning complete whole. So, last point before we conclude this, there are two kinds of completeness. One is independent completeness, and second is dependent completeness. Independent completeness means Swaraj, that is a position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dependent completeness refers to the living entities who can experience completeness when they realize their dependence on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. An example can be given, this body, which has been perfectly designed. Let's take a case of a hand. All the motions, everything is available in the hand. But this hand can only function as long as it's connected to the body. Yes or no? If a hand is chopped off the body, then the hand loses its completeness. Although the hand has all the facility to make a motion, but the purpose is only fulfilled when it's connected to the body. So in other words, the hand is an example of a dependent completeness. And that's the point here. So Prabhupada is concluding this very important verse, is if we are working according to God's plan, then we experience completeness. In other words, when we take to the path of bhakti, when we align ourselves to the will of the Lord, then we experience completeness. From a physical point of view, if you look at it, this world is designed to be temporary place. But whatever is the design is perfect to make me go back to Godhead, which means, as I said, atheists complain that there are a lot of suffering in this world, right? Which are intentionally put so that it compels us to go back to Godhead. Like it is said in English, pain may be compulsory, but suffering is optional. So pain is there, but to suffer or not, that depends on us. So material world will continue to act in its own way. Even devotees of the Lord, they have to grow old, they may fall sick, they have to give up this material body. That does not mean that they are suffering. No, they're not suffering. Internally, they're undergoing or they're experiencing completeness. In other words, completeness does not mean that I become immortal in the material world. You're getting a point? Which is the atheist or the atheistic scientific community focuses on. For their understanding, completeness of this world means I should have unlimited resources, my senses should never become tired of enjoying, and I should never die. And of course, there should not be any suffering. That is not the meaning of completeness. So we all would have all those challenges. So this mentality is similar to that of mentality of Hiranyakashipu, who also wanted to become immortal. So this is what a demoniac mentality. So the point is there is a complete arrangement in the creation or in the nature for maintenance, but not for sense enjoyment. For us to go back to Godhead, but not to live here. For our reformation, but not for enjoyment. And until we realize this aspect, this truth, until then, we continue to experience incompleteness in our life. With this, we conclude the invocation. So these are the titles that we had for the 5 paragraphs that we had here. So bear with me, I'm going little in details and little slow because I just want you to get hold of the subject matter. As you move forward, I'll a little bit increase my speed with that. So a chart which has been designed by some devotees in the past, I'm just using it here. So these are the 2 main things which are being discussed in this verse. One is on the subject of completeness, and second is personality. And we have discussed all the same. Supreme Personality of God, it is complete. I mean, think about it. The structure, this whole universal management. The human beings inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide, and then there are plants and trees who inhales carbon dioxide and exhales oxygen. Is that a perfect system? Everything has been provided, and that's the point here. Completeness means material world is complete, which means, an example which has been quoted here, the plane is moving, we get disturbed, but even Earth is moving at a far greater speed, yet we do not even experience it. So for our sustenance, everything has been provided. Personality, formless and not formless, which we have already discussed. With this, we conclude our invocation, and let's take a look at the overview of the 18 verses of Īśopaniṣad. I might just speak for another 15-20 minutes. I'll give you the introduction of text 1, some key points, and then maybe another 10-15 minutes remaining that we will open for question answer. So here we have 18 verses which are divided in the following sections. Invocation leading up to the 3rd verse of Īśopaniṣad emphasizes and establishes Ishvara. Just like Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, the very first verse, Ishvaraha Paramaha Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karana. In Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma establishes who is Ishwar, that is Krishna. Here, that is not established. Here, Ishwar is there, that is established. So that is a point. That's a little difference. So in this verses, verse number 1 to 3, we'll see about those who follow the principle, those who follows or abide by the rules of the nature or the law of this universe, what destination they achieve, and those who do not follow the rules, what happens to them. In other words, who do not abide by the rules of the Creator, what happens to them. Then we have second section from verses 4 to 8, where not exactly who is the Ishwar, that's not exactly being discussed, but is more about the nature of Ishwar is being discussed. What is this Ishwar? What are the nature and the qualities of that Ishwar has been described primarily in the 4th and the 5th verse, where Achintya Bhed Abhed Tattva has been discussed. So I believe you might have heard of this term, little heavy duty word, Achintya Bhed Abhed Tattva. It looks like somebody have kept dozens of things on your head. So we'll talk about this terminology, what it is in this section. And then from verse number 6 to 7 is the attitude and the vision of Mahabhagavat. And the verse 8 talks about how a Mahabhagavat understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Ishavasa principle, then the attributes of Ishvara, the vision of spiritualist. Then comes the 3rd section from verse number 9 to 14, where understanding and misunderstanding about Ishwar are being addressed or clarified. So where the subject matter of jnana, what is right knowledge and what is wrong knowledge, that is being discussed, and Sambhutim and Asambhutim. Sambhutim refers to the Supreme Personality. Asambhutim refers to temporary. So there in these verses, the differentiation is made. How Ishwar is not temporary but permanent. And we living entities in this material world are temporary. So those kind of differences are made. Very, very important discussion. 9 to 11 and 12 to 14. And finally, the fourth section is from verse number 15 to verse number 18, where prayers are being offered to Ishvara to reveal himself. So the whole Īśopaniṣad is to take us to understand Ishvara. Does anyone remember what was the meaning of the word Upanishad? And then we'll look into the meaning of what Īśopaniṣad. We discussed last time. Anyone? Upanishad. What does Upanishad means? Sit near to. Oh, you guys are, adding one word with every answer. Sit near to. To whom? Sit near to whom? Aishwarya Raj Gopalan. Please go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So the meaning of Upanishad is to sit near Vedas.
No, not to sit near Vedas. To sit near the Guru. And hear from him. To hear from him the knowledge. That is what Upanishad means. All right. So thank you. So going back to the slide deck. At least let me introduce what Īśopaniṣad is. So Īśopaniṣad, which is a part of Upanishad, specifically discusses about the revelation of Ishvara. Okay, Vedas talk about all kinds of knowledges. Īśopaniṣad focuses particularly on the subject of Ishvara. That is the point. So with that, let's begin our discussion on Īśopaniṣad. So the very first thing, how did this Upanishad got its name Īśopaniṣad? Oh, wait a second. Before I come to the subject matter, let me just conclude the invocation. I had asked a question in the beginning of the session. Why Srila Prabhupada did not even once use the name Krishna? Let me just take an answer for it, then I'll go to the text one. Any clues here? Anyone wants to give an answer? Any thoughts? I believe last time I told you, right? Prabhupada had written this Īśopaniṣad as an article to his Back to Godhead magazine between 1955 to 56, around 57, that kind of time. So why Prabhupada did not mention Krishna anywhere? Prabhupada knew what Om means. Om refers to Krishna. So we have Mother Charu Rasika. Can you please unmute yourself?
So as it was spoken for the general public, so everybody has different, means they used to worship different God. Like Christians are worshipping Jesus. So he's saying the Supreme Lord. So whoever wants to understand, whomever they can understand in that way, instead of specifically saying Krishna, so that establishing, okay, everybody could worship Hindu God.
Fine, thank you, but you're close to it, but that's not generally the mood of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada is very straightforward. He doesn't want people to, he was never looking forward for mass gathering. So he would never compromise on that. But you're close to it, but there is specific reason for it. Shrish Gopal, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. I feel it is Srila Prabhupada want to first generate the faith in the God. Means he has to first create the theist category from the atheist.
Fine. Thank you. So one of the reason is because Prabhupada is giving a commentary on the text, which is generally read by Jnanis. So this is the text Upanishads, which are generally studied by Jnanis. So Prabhupada is entering into their territory. Now, when you're entering into their territory, you don't want to scare them in your very first meeting, which means as soon as they open invocation, they should not get scared, because for them, all gods are same. Either it is Ganesh, either it is Brahma, it is Vishnu, it is Shiva, all are one. I attended one of the initiation ceremonies of such, Mayavadi group. That was in Bahamas one of the islands down of America. So I was there for some time in one of the Mayavadi camp. So, what happens at the initiation? When the initiation ceremony is happening, so when a disciple comes in forward in front of the guru asks, so which deity do you like? So let's say I say Ganeshji. So his name becomes Ganesh Das. So let's say you go and say, I like Durga. So you become Durga Dasi. Or somebody say, I like Kalki Avatar. You become Kalki Das. So like that. So, you have a freedom to choose whichever avatar you want, whichever devta you like, and you become that. So right now you are a Das. Now you are given a mantra for that particular devta, because in Rig Veda, primarily you have mantras for invocation of all the deities. And these are the Gyanis who read all these Upanishads. So now from there, they give you a particular mantra because you have chosen an Ishta Devta of your own choice. Then the mantra is given for you to recite the name of that Ishta Devta, with an understanding that by continuous spiritual practice, eventually you will become Ganesh, Durga, or Kalki, whatever is your freedom of choice here. So Prabhupada is entering into that territory. He doesn't want to scare them and bewilder them. That's the reason Prabhupada. For example, in today's time, if any one of us have to go and let's say speak to a Western audience, even let's say speak to those who are into yoga, you cannot publicly address Krishna, because you cannot even talk, you can even use the vocabulary or some words like Lord, things like that, because they have a lot of connotation connected to it. So what they would like to hear and would connect with you if you say supreme consciousness, the absolute truth, because we travel, so we are given training on what vocabulary to use for what kind of audience. So that is the reason Srila Prabhupada here is not mentioning Krishna. He wants them to read it and understand it as they gradually move verse after verse. Is that making sense? So it's a preaching strategy which is being deployed by Srila Prabhupada, and that's the reason in Bhakti Shastri books, this Śrī Īśopaniṣad is considered to be a book meant for teaching us or giving us preaching strategy and equipping us with the knowledge that helps us in our conducting preaching programs. Particularly Mayavad subject is discussed at length for that reason here. Okay, this is not a book for spiritual personal practice. Just like that's Updeshamrit, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, those are the books for personal practice, particularly Updeshamrit, Bhagavad Gita philosophy. This is for our knowledge and understanding how to speak, that kind of a thing. Okay, let's go back to the slide deck here. Again, coming back. So we were talking about Śrī Īśopaniṣad. So Upanishad. So who spoke the Upanishad? Baldev Vidyabhushan in his commentary explained. Upanishad was spoken by the Rishi by the name of Atharvana, if I am correct, wherein his son by the name of Dadyan had approached his father, and he had approached his father Atharvan, and because the son Dadyan was pure in his heart, and when he made an inquiry, therein the father, who was a self-realized soul, he shared the wisdom as he had heard from his spiritual master. And like that, Upanishad we have. And this Īśopaniṣad is found in Yajur Veda. Yajur Veda has two parts. These are just additional information. None of this is going to be asked in your exam, so don't worry about it. But we should know a little bit history. It is explained. This is all given in the commentary of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Baldev Vidyabhushan. I'm just quoting from there as it is. Yajur Veda has two parts. One is called as Shukla Paksha, and second is called as Krishna Yajur Veda Paksha. So Īśopaniṣad is part of Shukla Yajur Veda, and this Shukla Yajur Veda has 40 chapters, and Īśopaniṣad is the last chapter of this Shukla Yajur Veda, like that. So as we know, as we discussed last time, Vedas have two branches. One is called as Shruti, other is called as Smriti. Mayavadis or the Jnanis, they consider Smriti to be less important. For them, Shruti is most important. But our understanding of Smriti is we cannot understand Shruti unless we have Smriti. So therefore, Vaishnavas respect both Shruti and Smriti. Shrutis are the law codes and Smritis are case studies, which explains what happens when those law codes are being practiced or not practiced. So in Smriti, recitation of the verses is, of course, is purifying. We have Bhagavad Gita as part of a Smriti that way, but the focus is not the recitation of verses as of Shruti mantras. The focus in Smriti is on the meaning and the application of the verse. That is Smriti, that is Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita, we don't want to just recite verses, we want to apply the teaching. But the Shruti mantra, Upanishad is part of a Shruti, is not about personal application. As I said, this is not a book of personal application. This is a book of knowledge. Here, the purification happens through repetition of the verses. And it is to the degree we are properly reciting it. So I would like to give you a disclaimer. I am not a Sanskrit scholar, so I am not the one who really knows how to recite. So the way we recite it is not the actual meter in which Shruti mantras are recited, okay? We are generally not taught in our ISKCON, so we don't generally pay attention to it that much like that. So this is about a little bit introduction to this text. Let's this book. Let's take a look to the text 1 of Īśopaniṣad. Īśavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatayam jagat tena taktena bhunjita magadha kasya swidhanam. Somebody please read the translation. Bhagavati Karuni Mataji, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna. Everything inanimate, animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong.
Okay, and Hari, I forgot, before we read translation, I wanted to just tell you how to read the Sanskrit. Okay, I'll just go with that once. So, Isha, we'll look into the Sanskrit once a little bit. Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Sarva means everything, Idam means this. Isha is Ishwar. The word Isha means the controller. Isha Vasyam, Vas means which is controlled. What is being controlled? Īśavāsyam idam sarvam. So this whole material creation is controlled by Isha. And on this word Īśavāsyam, this Upanishad is given the name Īśopaniṣad. So that when even just by the title of the book Īśopaniṣad, the person understand what is the subject matter. Getting a point? Just like for every paragraph we are giving a title, just by the title of the paragraph we understand the subject of the paragraph. Similarly, this particular Upanishad has been given the name Īśopaniṣad. Yat kincha jagatyam jagat. Jagat, this material world. Whatever you see in this world, tena tyaktena bhunjita. Whatever you see in this world means animate, inanimate. You know, animate refers to living entities. Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter, verse number 4 and 5 talks about animate and inanimate. Superior energy, inferior energy. Inanimate is jad. Bhume rapo nalo vayu, kham mano buddhir, evacha ahankar ityamte binna prakatir ashtada. That refers to jad, 7.4. So everything yat kincha jagatyam, whatever you see animate and inanimate, tena, to you, tyaktena, what has been given, bhunjita, is to accept. What to accept? Magrada kasya swidhanam. So here, two things have been emphasized. First two lines emphasized Ishwar is the controller. And second two line, the last two line emphasizes is quota. Tena taktena bunjita. Everyone has been given an allotted quota. Magradha. Ma means do not. Kasya svidhanam. Do not long for anyone else's wealth or property. Be content with your quota. These are two things. So Krishna, or not the Krishna, Ishwar is a proprietor, and enjoy or be happy and content with your own allotted quota. That is a point is being explained here. Enjoy what is being authorized. So this is from the commentary which I've just noted on my book. The meaning of the word bhunjita. Bhunjita means accept. So one of the acharyas explained the meaning of the word bhunjita. He says, he actually breaks down the word bhunjita, where bhu refers to knowledge, ji refers to practice, and tha refers to activities. Knowledge, practice, activities, which means this is ordained, right? So everything, the knowledge, your practice or activity, which you want to enjoy, must be ordained by Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Did I make it complicated? Should I just rephrase it? Bhunjita is a very important word in this particular verse. Bhunjita means be happy with your quota. Enjoy and be content with your quota. And one of the Acharyas described this word Bhunjita refers to the knowledge, practice, and activities. All these three things must be approved and ordained by Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Let me give you one reference. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, titled as Divine and Demoniac. At the end, not at the end. What is the difference between divine and demoniac? Lord Shri Krishna speaks. I believe this is somewhere 8th and 9th verse, if I'm correct. Lord Shri Krishna says the difference between divine and demoniac is a very thin line. And what is a thin line? Demons are those who reject Vedic scriptures. And divine are those who accept Vedic scripture. And the same point gets repeated at the end of the 16th chapter. Making sense? So that is the meaning of the word Bhunjita. So let's take a look. The text 1. What is the connection here? So invocation explained that Krishna is a complete whole. And naturally, he's also the proprietor. Of course, Krishna, we have added here right now, but we have established from the Srimad Bhagavatam that Om refers to Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. So that's why I'm making a point. And also, the living entities are complete in itself. There is an independent controller and there is a dependent controller. We established that point. Now, text 1 explains how human beings can realize their completeness by recognizing the Lord's proprietorship. Because subject matter of completeness and incompleteness was discussed in the previous shloka that is being addressed here. So the main theme of this text is the only way to a life of deathlessness is by devotional service and not by any scientific attempts or temporary relief work. Wait a second. This is not the main theme. Just before I just was creating a presentation and I just copied it from one of the 17th or the 16th verse, which I've spoken for the Hindi audience. So please bear with me. This is not the main theme. There's a little error here. So the theme, the main subject matter is discussed here is about how Ishvara is a supreme personality of Godhead who is a controller proprietor, and our freedom lies in realizing our relationship with the supreme personality of God. That's the main theme. I'll correct it. Taking a look at an overview, we can't go into that. So for next time, we can do this. Maybe I will give you the summary at your level. You can go ahead if possible, read it and give a title. I'll just walk you through with the titles that we have for this puppet. In the very first 2 paragraphs, Prabhupada is going to talk about the glories of Vedic knowledge. Then Prabhupada is going to talk about how is the Supreme Personality of Godhead is proprietor of everything. So don't worry, we'll be discussing this, and the slide deck is all available to all of you. Then in the 5th paragraph, Prabhupada talks about kota. What is an example of kota in nature? And then in the 6th to the 8th paragraph, Prabhupada talks about example of kota in human possession on earth, like that. And then Prabhupada goes on to the subject matter of capitalism and communism. So here I'll be discussing history, and I've titled it as Theocracy to Democracy. How many of you heard Prabhupada called democracy or democracy? So that is the subject here. So we're going to discuss this next week. I mean, I couldn't do it today. And then we'll also talk about capitalism versus communism, as Srila Prabhupada brings out in his purport. But we'll discuss this all next week. With that, I believe this presentation gets over, if I'm correct. Oh no, there is, okay. This doesn't end actually here. We have is a big purport. Then Prabhupada talks about example of one's quota in human diet, and finally the last paragraph, live according to Ishavasya principle. So we'll discuss all this next week. For today, we pause here. We looked into the invocation and a little bit of details. So any questions or any comments here on what we have discussed so far? Of course, I wanted to discuss text 1, but we a little bit got into details of invocation. That's fine. Nitai Prantu, are you managing it?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay.
Yeah. We got some hands raised, Prabhu. So I'll first go with Anshul Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandot Ram. Prabhuji, in the invocation, in one of the, in verse, I think 3, in verse 2, we discussed that material world is complete. And we kind of elaborated further on that with the help of verse 3, wherein we said that the world is, the material world can be considered complete because it offers the complete facility to the human form of life for realizing the complete. The complete whole. Now, a question may come here that, okay, for human form of life, it offers that facility, that complete facility. But what about the other forms of life? They are also part of this material world.
Yes, thank you. Very nice question. So we have a law of karma, and is you all aware of it, which Lord Shri Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. So according to law of karma, once a person, a living entity, glides down to lower species, it is a punishment. And as a punishment, he goes through those lower species. Unlike Abrahamic tradition, where there you have only one lifetime, and after that, hell or heaven. That is not the Vedic concept. You're given a punishment which could go up to millions of lifetimes or hundreds of lifetimes, but once again, you come back to human form of life, right? So the opportunity is always there in the human form of life. So it's not that once you lost the human form of life, there is no opportunity. So we said this world is not meant for enjoyment, but for reformation. Those who deny to get reformed, according to the laws of the nature, they are punished. And there you have a law of karma, which functions, which kicks in. And there you have 8.4 million species. And accordingly, kind of a karma, this is a subject matter in detail discussed in Bhagavad Gita. In essence, if I make a one-line statement, our consciousness, our current consciousness, as discussed in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, creates a template of our next life. I say that again. Whatever your consciousness right now is like creating a template for your next life. Antakale, not that one. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tayagate ante kalevaram. Whatever you remember at the end of your life, accordingly, you get to the next body. But it's not that we have a control on what we want to remember. That's a whole subject matter. But you got the point, coming back to your question. So it's a punishment. But it is not that they don't have an opportunity or they're not given an opportunity again to come back into the human form of life. And the last point, if they have performed devotional service, even if they go into the animal body, their devotional credits are not lost. Example is Gajendra. Example is Dhruv Maharaj becoming a deer. So once again, facility is there. Fine.
Thank you.
By the way, just want to take a quick feedback from all of you. Is this whole online thing working out? You can give me a feedback if I'm getting into too much details, or you just want to get a certificate quickly, Prabhu, finish off soon, why so much details and all that. So anyways, you can give feedback. It depends on me how seriously I take it, but it's good to get a feedback. All right. Okay. Yes. Next question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. What I understand from these lectures, today's lecture is about the agriculture thing that you're talking about. So I just wanted to understand about the technological advancement that is happening. Is it against the nature? Because as it mentions that everything is available in nature. So how is that? If you can, I'm a little confused. This was one. Second thing is about when you spoke about the Mayavadis.
Should we go one by one?
Okay, Prabhu.
A brilliant question. Very, very nice. I really liked it. Question on technological advancement. It's not mentioned in Mahabharata explicitly. And now it's very difficult to quote Mahabharata because there are many, many versions of Mahabharata. But I heard in one of the, from one of the seniors who was very well versed with Mahabharata and different versions of Mahabharata. There's a very famous pastime that comes of Khandava 1. When the Arjuna burns the Khandava 1. So there, what's the name of the demon who came and Mayadanav, he came and, Mayadanav, gave the chariot to Arjuna, gave the Gandiva bow to Arjuna, gave Sudarshan disc to Lord Shri Krishna. That's how Lord Shri Krishna had got his Sudarshan disc. Of course, it's not that Krishna doesn't have Sudarshan. That's a pastime. Just like in Samudra Manthan Leela, Lakshmi appeared and Lakshmi Narayan got married. It doesn't mean that Lakshmi was not existing. That's a means of Lakshmi's descent in the material world. Similarly, that was a pastime of Sudarshan Chakra's descent. I just want to clarify that. I don't want to make confusions here. So it is explained that at that point of time, when Mayadana was giving this kind of blessings and all that, there he also wanted to give this whole knowledge of manipulating jada, dead matter. This elements of this material creation, what we call as technological advancement. So one of the senior, of course, I don't have any Vedic reference to it, but I heard it, which made a lot of sense. So it is said, Lord Shri Krishna told Arjuna, accept everything, but not this thing. It's very interesting. Now, you believe it or not, but the logic is why Lord Shri Krishna said not to accept this knowledge of technological advancement. And I'll give you a little bit of history connected to it. So why? Because Krishna said, Arjuna, this is the knowledge of manipulating jada. You're playing with elements. Whatever big buildings, whatever machines you have is what? Is playing with the basic fundamental earth, water, fire, ether in different forms that it exists. It says, if Arjuna, you get this knowledge, it will suck up your energy, life's energy. And you will completely get lost in your, the goal of the human form of life. Now, a lot of time question is asked, how we Indians, or let's call it Bharatvarsh, being culturing Vedic knowledge, became so backward. The only reason why we became backward, of course, Britishers came, they looted and all that. When the technical, I will speak about this thing in the next, to give you an example of theocracy became democracy. In 16th century or the early 17th century is the time when industrial revolution started in Europe. What is this industrial revolution? Manipulating matter, existing in different forms, isn't it? And look what had happened to the society there since they got into industrial revolution. They have lost entirely the culture. Culturally, the most corrupt is the European civilization. And they went out from there creating their colonies and whatnot, and they corrupted rest part of the world. They are the one who came to India and corrupted India. So this whole industrial revolution and civilization actually makes a person more and more atheistic. For example, Google search, it gives you an experience as if you're a lord. Type in anything and your desire is fulfilled, isn't it? Go on YouTube. You feel like you're getting bored, and your mind produces a desire. I went to see some dogs swimming in the ocean, for example, some vague desire. You type in. I'm pretty sure you'll find some videos of dogs swimming in the ocean. There are millions and millions of videos. So this technological advancement just gives us sense, artificial strength. It strengthens our ignorance that I'm the Lord. So therefore, Prabhupada says, of course, utility is a principle that has been taught. If you get a knowledge, and with that spiritual knowledge, you use, like we're using technology, isn't it?
Yeah.
All of us are in different parts of the world. We are using technology to study scriptures. Then it is an appropriate usage. But anything outside of it, we have to be very, very careful. It can really, smartphone, look about it. When I was back in America, I worked into this industry. We were the one who created some of the very initial products for this whole smartphone industry. Now you look at it, it's just like everything is in the palm of your hand. I mean to say is everything is within your palm. You want to order burger? It's just like, genie. You rub a bottle and genie comes and he says, what, my dear master, you want? And now you have Mantra app or whatever, food point, and that turns up in your app. What do you want to eat? Burger or pizza? You say burger, and that gets home delivered. Isn't the same thing? So it gives you more and more a sense of illusion that you are the Lord and Creator and Controller. So we have to be very careful. If you are able to use this technology in the service of the Lord, you're on the right track. If it ain't, then we are trying to become the Lord. And that's where the problem starts. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And who doesn't understand the disadvantages of the so-called technical advancement in terms of social media applications, smartphone? Ask a parent. They will tell you how much they're troubled. They're worried about the well-being and the future of their kids because getting spoiled because of, TikTok, you call it Twitter, you call it Instagram, you call it, there are unlimited applications. This is a risk factor also, so like that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I'll make this later on, but just to conclude with, all these things make us dependent on other human being. For example, when TikTok was banned in India, there was such a hue and cry. Many of the youngsters felt like committing suicide. Can you imagine how much dependency they had developed? And I'll give the purport to the statement in one of the future sessions, but just think on it. Bhagavad Gita teaches us to become independent. And technology has made us dependent. Not only technology, the current civilization is such, for your well-being, you're forced to work in some industry. If you don't study, don't go through the college education, all that, you will not get a job and you will not be able to maintain yourself. Earlier, there was no culture like this. Every village was independent. Everyone had their own farmland. They will grow their crops and they will live their life. There was no dependency. What happens in the next village did not at all affect the second village. Today, if there is a economic crisis on the Wall Street in America, the ripples goes all over the world. Yes or no? We have become slaves to some chosen people who, whatever way, we get control. So that's the reason Prabhupada said, the sustainable living is what we have to think. Where we go back to that kind of living. Of course, I know that is not the objective of Bhakti, to give up where we are, but at least develop that aspiration and create detachment from the life that we're living. so that we don't remain attached and attracted to the glitters of the modern world. That's the point. If that much you get it, you're on the right track. Okay?
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. That was enlightenment. The second question is about the
you have a second question. Forgot only.
Yeah.
Okay, Harish, I'll come to your second question. I guess others should also be given an opportunity.
Thank you.
We can have others. Yeah.
So, Mukundan Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavad Pranam.
Hari, Danvards.
Prabhu, I have a question on jnanis that you explained in the first paragraph purport, that they have realized the Brahman realization aspect. But when you were talking about Prabhupada's writing the Īśopaniṣad as an article in Back to God in magazine, you were mentioning that jnanis were his target audience. He was trying to enter the territory of jnanis and explaining to them Īśopaniṣad purport. So in that context, you mentioned about Mayavadis, related jnanis to Mayavadis. So do jnanis fall under two categories, Brahmavadis and as well as Mayavadis?
Thank you. With my limited understanding and experience, it's very difficult to find any Brahmavadi today. The example of Brahmavadi that I gave you was of 4 Kumaras. So most of the Jnanis of the Kali Yuga and of the modern times are the followers of Shankaracharya. And you name any of the organization for that, either it comes under Shankaracharya lineage or Buddhism primarily. So in that way, there is no Brahmavadis, they're all Mayavadis. It depends on who's your teacher, and the disciplic succession is starting from Shankaracharya for that reason. So they're all going to be Mayavadi. So in modern day, to give an example of Brahmavadis, I thought on it a lot, can't think of any. And that's the reason Prabhupada, although impersonalism is Brahmavadi and Mayavadi, but many times Prabhupada just refers Mayavadi as impersonalism because Brahmavadi doesn't exist. So you might read somewhere in the purport, Prabhupada, heavily chastising impersonalists. That is not Brahmavadi. That is Mayavadi. But technically, there are 2. That's what we explained. In Bhagavad Gita, when we're going to go, there are a set of verses addressed for Brahmavadis and addressed for Mayavad. So we just give you a technical detail to it, but large, it's all Mayavad today, like that. Okay?
Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
So I had a very basic question, Prabhu, why are we studying Īśopaniṣad of all the Upanishads, Prabhu? I mean, why has Prabhupada has chosen this one to give to us?
Right. I believe I made this point last time also. This is one of the Upanishad where several of our acharyas have commented. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Baldev Vidyabhushan, Madhavacharya, and others. And the reason is because this one Upanishad very clearly establishes there is an Ishvara. Jiva is not Ishwar. Ishwar is Ishwar. Jiva is different than Ishwar. Whereas all other Upanishads, there are sometimes confusion. So this text particularly makes a very clear distinction. And that is how it begins. Isha Vasimidam Sarvam. There is an Isha who is a Vasa, which means controller of everything, Sarvam. Which is animate or inanimate. For that purpose to establish, because for Mayavadis, they consider themselves to be Ishwar. And they say, right now we have forgotten our identity, but very soon it will dawn to us that we are the Ishwar. And that is what our Upanishad says, we are Ishwar. So we are believing we are Ishwar and we continue like this. Just like one of our Mayavadis or impersonalists join ISKCON movement, this keep happening, but I'm just giving one example. So one devotee asked him, why did you join ISKCON movement when you were impersonalist? He said, I was taught by my guru that I'm God. If you're God, you're Swarat. So when problem comes on you, whom do you pray? So when there were crises in my life, I got confused. how a God can have crisis in his life. And if I'm God, whom do I worship? Whom do I seek help? If I need help, it means I'm not God. And by this logic, he understood and came back to his God. He was an intelligent Jnani. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, there are no more hands raised, Prabhu. If devotees have any question, then they can please raise their hands.
I see Mother Leela Nandani.
Yeah. Yes, Leela Mataji, please go ahead. I think there's some issue with at her end. We can't hear her.
Mother, you can type in the meantime. I see Santosh, Shri Sagar. Santosh, go ahead. We'll be a little quick, huh? It's getting late for all of you. It's 2:45 now.
Prabhuji, you explained about that Sandhini, Samanvit, and Alladini. In that Alladini is realization of Sat, Chit, and like that combination of three, or
it's primarily said it's the Ananda feature.
Okay.
That Satchit Ananda combined is of realization of the absolute. Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. That's the concept of realization. But this Sat feature, Chit feature, and Anand feature, these are the energies of the Lord, which is called as Sandhini, that is eternity. Samvit means knowledge. And Haladini means the pleasure potency, like that. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Nitai Prabhu?
Yeah, Harish Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji again, once again.
Yes.
So when you're referring to Shankaracharya, is he Adi Shankaracharya?
Okay, that's a little interesting question. Are there multiple Shankaracharyas?
I don't know. So I know a little bit about Adi Shankara, where Adi Shankaracharya, where he is revered. He's known as the revered Vedic Guru, who I guess.
Yes. So the disciples under that are also called as sometimes Shankaracharya, but we're talking about Adi Shankaracharya.
Okay, so
who lived up to the age of 32 years and who re-established the faith of people on Vedic scriptures, who is also said to be incarnation of Lord Shiva.
Okay, by the definition of impersonalist, so that means is he supposed to be termed as an impersonalist, where he's an atheist?
No.
Now, if you're saying he's an incarnation of Shiva,
I already established that within the disciplic line, gradually this whole Mayavad concept became very prominent. That is a missing link for me also, where I'll have to look into it more details in the history, from where exactly Mayavad was picked up. Of course, he said Jagan Mithya, he definitely spoke about the concept of impersonalism. But Prabhupada says he also established, like he wrote the bhajan, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, like that. So yet he establishing Krishna, worshipping Krishna, his disciples did not take that message. They largely took the message of impersonalism, which he also spoke about from his studies of Upanishad. See, maybe we'll conclude with this point. Sanskrit is a very, very complicated language. For every word, there could be more than 10 meanings. Just like Bhagavan, Bha has a set of meanings, Ga has a set of meanings, Van has a set of meanings. And how you do the permutation and combination, like that you get a meaning of what Bhagavan. So that is the reason Prabhupada wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is, which means I have not made any changes. I am not adding what I understand. What Krishna spoke to Arjuna and whatever that way the knowledge has come through the disciplic succession is what I'm giving you. Otherwise, Sanskrit language is like, that maze where once you enter, you don't know how to come out. That's why it becomes like that. Okay?
Yeah. Prabhu, there is a question in the chat from Leela Nandini Mataji. She's asking, what are the 24 elements of material universe?
Very good question. Earth, water, fire, air, ether. These are called as 5 gross elements. Then mind, intelligence, false ego, they call it 3 subtle elements, which means 8. Then there are 5 knowledge acquiring senses. Oh, by the way, this is mentioned in the introduction. If you read the introduction, Prabhupada mentions 24 elements. I had not explained it, but I had just touched on it. Nonetheless, we'll talk about it. 8 elements are done. Then 5 are knowledge acquiring senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch. Then there are 5 working senses: hands, feet, the speech of the mouth, and the genital, like that. So that makes 18 items. And there are 5 sense objects for our senses to perceive. The form for the eyes to see, the sound, these are called as sense objects. That makes it 23. And 24 element is sometimes, at some places, said soul, sometimes it is said kala, like that. It can depend on. Prabhupada uses both soul as a 24th element, sometimes kala also, like that. Okay? These are your 24 elements by which this material creation is created. Everything is nothing but the conglomeration of these 24 elements.
Thank you, Prabhu. Probably the last question of the session, Prabhu. So it's from Ramesh Prabhu and Swapna Mataji. When everything happens at the will of the Lord, then is technology advancements also will of the Lord?
Very nice question. And my say would be yes. No also, in one sense. Lord Shri Krishna is not involved in the day-to-day affair. Now, yet it is said, not even the blade of grass moves without the permission of the Lord. What it means, that it is dependent on the Lord. And for it to function, Lord has created a whole system of universal affair. But Lord Shri Krishna is not involved in day-to-day affair or any devta for that reason. Now you have this 4 yuga, Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. And each of this yuga comes with their own set of features. Just like a living entity gets a body of a dog, gets a body of a human being, you have a set of features along with it. Similarly, Kala, a yuga cycle, comes along with its own feature. Like Kali Yuga is described as Prayana Alpa Ayushya Sabhya Kalavasmin Yuge Janaha Mandasa Mandamatiyo Mandabhagya Upadruta. These are the features, the attributes of Kali Yuga. So as I was speaking, I believe in the previous class on the subject matter, I believe Mother Satya had asked this question about something related to why there was a downfall of Indian civilization. And I said, see, at the end, this whole nationalism can really, make us a little agitated. But try to understand this was supposed to happen, this had to happen. Everyone in this world is reaping the results of their own actions. So similarly, technological advancement, any of this, which is also an opulence, it's an incredible thing in one sense, can never happen without the will of the Lord. But to say this is the will of the Lord is also not right, because this is our desire. We want to function and live like this. Lord is, through the medium of this whole universal management, is fulfilling the desire. But that's not the will of the Lord. Lord's will is very clear, which he explains in Bhagavad Gita. What is Lord's will? Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshami masaja. That is the Lord's will. So please be careful of saying that, it's all happening by the Lord's will. No. We are here into this world because of our own will. And Lord has provided a facility for us to fulfill our desires. But when we say it's happening all by Lord's will, it means all and everything that we do is only possible by the sanction of the Lord. But that does not mean Lord wants us to do this. Okay? I hope this is clear now. Many times people say, Prabhu ji, Bhagwan ki ichha hogi to Vrindavan ka nyota aa jayega. Mayapur jana hoga to God nitai bula hi lenge. No, don't cheat yourself, okay? This is not the point. Okay, Nitai Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you so much. So, yeah, if there are no further questions, then we probably...
Yeah, well, in case there are some, we can discuss next week, or you can ping me like that. So thank you so much. And do let us know, maybe let know the host if there are any cases, because, I don't have a direct interaction with all of you. And when I'm speaking, I don't get to see any one of you except for right now. So if in case there are some feedbacks to make your study comfortable and relishable that way, okay? If you wish to write to me directly, you can also write to me directly that way. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening and a week. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki, Śrī Īśopaniṣad ki Jai. Hare Krishna.